Hello, everyone. This, Welcome to Night Reads. My name is Brian Basham. Thankfully, I am alive. Contrary to the rumors, I did survive the Black Death, and I am here to tell you not to do meth. It's bad for you, okay? Tonight, we have a selection to read called Chasing After Trouble by T.M. DeLawrence. It's a mystery action adventure. And I guess I should explain what Night Reads is. A Night Reads is a program for live readings of fiction over the interwebs. This program only survives if I have submissions from authors. So if you're an author and you're interested in having a writing featured on this program, I invite you to visit my website at www.brian-basham and click on the Night Reads link at the top. And there's a link for authors that explains the submission guidelines. And if you submit it, it'll be featured on here. There are slots available now, so if you're interested, go to the website, submit something, and I'll be reading it on here. Okay, well, let's see. Yeah, there's currently slots available. Okay, well, let's get started. This is, again, Chasing After Trouble by T.M. DeLawrence. Chapter 1. Did anybody ever tell you that you are a very mysterious man? The question took him by surprise as he took a sip of his wine. He smiled as he blotted the sides of his lips. He looked across the table at his employer and shook his head. "No," he replied. "I can't say that anybody has, Miss Taylor." "Please," she said, as she quickly took a sip of her wine, "call me Tessa." "I do apologize, Tessa. My father always said that when you sit at the dinner table with a beautiful woman, you need to address her as either Miss or my lady." "Your father must have been extraordinary." He smiled. "My mother thought so." She leaned closer towards the table. "Tell me about your family," she said softly. "I mean, after all, there's not much that I know about you. Your personnel file tells me you were a student at Ithaca, and you were a Virginia Beach police officer, and that's where it stops. Call me suspicious, but up until 7 years ago, Derek Chase didn't exist. Besides what I had, I couldn't find any other employee records, driver's license, former addresses, diplomas, awards, nothing. I couldn't even find the purchase order for that Ferrari you drive. Do you know I traced your social security number? That looks like that was also issued about 7 years ago." His smile was genuine. "I see I'm not the only detective sitting at the table," he replied. "To answer your question, I'm not who I say I am. Then who are you?" Made a mistake there. It's actually chapter 2. He saw that she had taken the bait. "I'm actually from a planet on the other side of the galaxy. If you hang a right next to the Big Dipper and go straight for about 30 million light years, my planet is the sixth one on the right." She pretended to giggle. "I'm being serious." He chuckled as he took a sip of his wine. "Okay," he conceded. "Honestly, my father travels a lot. Originally, I was born in a small city in South America. When I was 4, we moved here to Virginia Beach, and since the age of 7, my sisters and I have been globe hopping. We didn't return to the United States until I was 23. which is when I got my driver's license and new social security number. Most of my schooling was abroad, which made it very difficult to get into Ithaca. I didn't have to work because once I started, it was time to hit the road and go to another part of the planet. Any award I would have received would have been for the fastest suitcase packer of the Chase family. Her giggle was real this time. By the way, I enjoyed my tour of Lynnhaven 1, he said, attempting to change the subject. You can see for miles from the observation deck. It's absolutely beautiful. That's what I hear. Well, maybe I can talk you into going up there for a cup of coffee. Thank you, Derek, but I'm not too big on heights. Not to mention, every time I go up there, it's cloudy and I can't see much. Can I take a rain check? Sure. Now tell me more about yourself. Well, what about you? He asked in hopes of changing the subject. She sensed his hesitancy. What would you like to know? She asked. You seem to have me all figured out during our interview today. She was right. He quickly had to find something to talk about. Well, what about your family? How do they feel about having a lawyer in their family? They actually have 2 lawyers. My sister is a lawyer for the Judge Advocate General in Falls Church, Virginia. But to be honest, they're really not keen on the 2 of us being 12 hours away. My father is very sick, and our mother wants us in Boston to help take care of him, but unfortunately neither one of us have been able to break away. He watched her as she reflected on what she had said. I'm sure we'll get together and figure something out. I'm sorry, I hope... No, don't worry about it. It's perfectly all right. Her joviality was returning. Is there anything else you'd like to know? Again, he quickly scanned her to find something he could ask about. He found it on her wrist. That's a beautiful diamond tennis bracelet. 4 carats, is it? Actually, it's 6 carats. It was last year's Christmas present from Kevin. What did you get him? Gave him and his wife cruise tickets to Mexico. With benefits like that, I'm going to enjoy working for this company. She laughed and diverted the attention back to him. Okay, enough about me. There must be more to Derek Chase than just a spoiled boy refined in various cultures of the planet. I still don't know anything about you. Tell me, are you a Democrat or a Republican? Do you like jazz or heavy metal? Are you a saint or a sinner? And tell me more about your family. You really didn't go into a lot of detail. You were inquisitive this evening, he replied. I didn't know I was on the witness stand again. I'd like to know who's working for me. He took another sip of his wine and blotted his lips. He looked at her and smiled as he answered. If you must know, it's safer that I avoid discussing politics. I prefer jazz over heavy metal, and I like to consider myself a saint with some devilish virtues. Tessa laughed at his response. You probably like to wear boxers rather than briefs. That is a conversation we can save for a later date. She smiled, remembering the dialogue they had when he first interviewed for the position of investigator of Garrett and Taylor. I'll tell you if you do. Derek weighed the consequences and felt it best to change the subject. There's not much I can discuss about my family. As I said before, my father is in the import-export business. He manages about 80% of my grandfather's corporations around the world. As you already know from this morning, my mother died in a car accident 4 months after my brother was born. Yes, I remember. If you don't mind me asking, could you tell me more about what happened? No one really knows. It was a sunny spring afternoon when my mother was returning from her sister's house. She was driving along one of the back roads and lost control of her car. She broke through the guardrail and went off the cliff. My brother was in the car with her. Both of them were killed in the crash. How awful. Derek stared at the glass of red wine sitting before him as he wallowed in the past. Investigators and rescue workers concluded their death to be an accident caused by driver carelessness. But I disagree, he concluded. Not my mother. She had been driving since she was 12, not to mention it was a road she knew very well. That sounds suspicious. The news was devastating to our family and friends. Anybody who knew my mother loved her. Then came the rumors. Rumors? What rumors? Derek's attention quickly reverted back to the present. He looked across the table to find Tessa holding on to his words, as if she was in the middle of a cliffhanger. I'm sure you just didn't bring me here to talk about my life. You said you had an assignment for me. Don't stop, she retorted. I was just getting ready to crack that shell of yours. Derek smiled. It's much safer for you if you don't. His heart relaxed as he focused on his work and studied the body. She was wearing the navy blue suit she wore to dinner from the night before. Her white blouse was blood-stained. It looked like she had been shot once in the chest. Derek looked at her wrist and raised an eyebrow. She was still wearing the 6-carat diamond tennis bracelet that Kevin bought her for Christmas. He recovered her body with the black plastic body bag as he scanned the living room. He saw Tessa's purse on the table next to some open letters. He stood up and walked over to the table. He opened her purse and found her wallet. He opened the wallet to find her credit cards and her money safely tucked away in the billfolds. He looked at the open mail and sat next to the purse and found a new unsigned credit card in the pile. Many questions were beginning to formulate. Oh, for Pete's sake, came a deep, bellowing voice of disgust. What the hell is he doing here? Derek turned to find Lieutenant Terry Austin walking into the apartment with Sergeant John Steele. When he worked with the Virginia Beach Police, one or both could often be seen at various crime scenes, barking out orders and fending off the press. Both were wearing the standard light brown trench coat. The lieutenant's balding head and gray beard added to the look of fatigue. Sergeant Steele was a little bit younger and bulkier than the lieutenant. His black hair was slicked back, and his clean-shaven face gave him the appearance of a Hollywood movie star on display. Will someone get him the hell out of here? The lieutenant pleaded. He looked around the room with his arms outstretched. He's contaminating the crime scene. Derek sighed. The history he and Austin shared was not a pretty one, and each time they crossed paths, the confrontation was never favorable. Lieutenant Austin thought of him as a rogue, looking to jump into anything without weighing the consequences. Meanwhile, Derek thought of the lieutenant as a hard-nosed, whip-cracking general who missed his calling in Hitler's SS army. Lieutenant? Derek began. Listen, Chase, the lieutenant interjected. You may not have gotten it in that mule head of yours, but you're no longer a cop, and this is a police matter. I don't need you turning this into a 3-ring circus. As far as I'm concerned, this is a simple breaking and entering case. Tessa Taylor came home, found a prowler. There was a struggle, and he shot her in the chest. Derek walked over to the lieutenant. Austin, I hate to shatter this perfect scenario, but if this was a simple breaking and entering, why didn't the prowler take her diamond tennis bracelet or the money in her wallet? I found an unsigned credit card on the table. What prowler in his right mind would turn that down? He was scared. Bullshit, Derek exclaimed. Somebody was looking for something. Like what? The sergeant asked. His voice was friendly, yet very inquisitive and firm. He reminded Derek of a younger version of Humphrey Bogart's Sam Spade. The sergeant also assisted with Derek's training while he was in the police academy. Though they were not close friends, there was a certain respect between the two. How the hell should I know? Derek shrugged towards the sergeant. But I'm going to find out. Derek, the sergeant pleaded, why don't you let the police handle this one? And why don't you two just kiss my ass? I happen to be the lead investigator for Garrett and Taylor. I'm in this whether you like it or not. Chase, the lieutenant interjected, if you so much as breathe anywhere near this case, I will charge you with obstruction of justice and throw you into an electrified 2x2 cell encased in barbed wire. Steel? The detective asked. The lieutenant looks a little pale. Are you sure he's getting his daily enema? Austin smirked. Chase, haven't you learned anything? You are a good-for-nothing cop, and now you're a good-for-nothing investigator. Let the real cops handle this one. Stay out of it. Derek leaned closer to the lieutenant. Not on your life. But I will let you in on a little secret, Lieutenant. The academy teachers were right. You really are a jackass. And with that, Derek walked out of the apartment. Chapter 3. Derek stepped out of the elevator onto the 30th floor of Lynnhaven 1, still upset at himself for the previous night. With the Ferrari's ignorance of city speed limits, it only took 10 minutes to drive from Aldo's on Laskin to Marina Shores on Great Neck. She was impressed with the time, commenting that if they had instead dined with Kevin and the Commonwealth's attorney and drove the speed limit back, it would have taken them 15. Again, he mentally chastised himself. Though dusk had not quite fallen at 7:20, walking her to her door would have been the gentlemanlike thing to do. Of course, she turned him down when he did offer and was adamant that he went home, stating that he needed his rest for the amount of work she was going to unload on him. Upon retrospect, she might have still been alive if he insisted. He stepped into the marble hallway in front of the glass door of the corporate law firm, Garrett and Taylor. He had changed from his earlier morning attire of jeans and a polo shirt. He was now showered and cleanly shaven, wearing neatly pressed black slacks, shiny black loafers, a tan collarless shirt, a black vest, and black jacket. His shades dangled from his vest as he walked across the marble floor. He walked through the glass door of the law office and was immediately reminded of the uneasiness sitting in his stomach. The mood was solemn. Employees were slowly walking about, remembering the positive and powerful aurora of one of the two designated champions of Garrett and Taylor's corporate law enforcement. Maybe it was the way she conducted herself. She was playful, but quite aware of the authority she commanded. Or maybe it was the respect she not only had for others, but for the cause of justice. Garrett and Taylor Law was known for defending the underdog and took pride in defeating the power-hungry and those who operated above the law. Regardless, she would have been a good person to have been acquainted with. He looked at Tessa's secretary. Sandra was fighting to hide the sadness that everybody else who knew Tessa was showing. The college student of Virginia Wesleyan looked up from her computer to find the investigator of Garrett and Taylor walking up. She took in a deep breath, regaining her businesslike composure. She moved her hair from her face to the back of her ear. He noticed she had been crying. "Good morning, Mr. Chase." "Good morning, Sandra," he began. His heart went out to her. "I'm sorry about Miss Taylor. How are you holding up?" "I'll be okay," she responded. "Mr. Garrett had called earlier and told me that you might be stopping by. I'm here if you need me." "Thank you," he said. "I don't know how long I'm going to be, but I'll need to go through all of Tessa's files." "Doesn't that violate client confidentiality? More than likely, but I'm not in the mood for policies and procedures. And if anybody asks, you never saw me. The intern nodded as she opened her desk drawer. She pulled out a spare key and stood from her desk. The police say it's an open and shut case. Do you think it's something more than that? That's what I'm here to find out, Derek replied. I'll need a list of every employee, client, and potential client for the last 3 years. We'll start with that. Also solicit phone records from the phone company and the company's bank statements. Sandra reached towards her desk and grabbed a pen and a pad of paper. She began scribbling notes. Files of employees, clients, potential clients, phone records, and company bank statements. What are you looking for? He shrugged. Not sure yet. I'm hoping that something in her office will put me in the right direction. Sandra stepped over and unlocked Tessa's office door. Taking in a deep breath, she slowly pushed it open. The detective looked over his shoulder, and a surge of adrenaline quickly started traveling throughout his body. Tessa's office mimicked her beach apartment. It had been distorted from its professional, structured-like surrounding into an unorganized calamity of paper and files strewn across the floor. However, it wasn't the littering of paper that alarmed him. It was the ominous figure of the security guard laying face down on the carpet in a pool of blood. Derek rummaged through the files littered across Tessa's office. He only had minutes to decipher what was pertinent information before Lieutenant Austin and his crime scene unit were on the scene and sealing off Tessa's office. As much as he looked forward to proving his point, he didn't have the energy to confront Austin, so he quickly looked for clues as his heart raced. She could have been murdered for any one of the cases she had worked on. As an assistant district attorney, she put hundreds of criminals behind bars. As a corporate lawyer, many companies lost millions because of her. Each file he opened had a motive. The latex gloves he borrowed from the cleaning lady stretched across his fingers as he opened another file. His curiosity piqued. The cover letter within the file displayed a company logo of a lion-like animal with wings. He had seen that logo before. He was sure of it. He looked over the desk at the body lying on the carpet, particularly at the outfit. The logo on the letterhead matched the logo of the patch on the shoulder of the security guard's body. He took a seat in Tessa's leather chair and continued to read the file. Around 3 months ago, Tessa had been conducting an investigation against Griffin Securities Incorporated, a local security company that specialized in providing 24-hour state-of-the-art security for the larger corporations. It seemed that Michael Thatcher, a former police officer for Virginia Beach, now security personnel for Griffin Securities, had been indicted for stealing company secrets from Premier Tech, one of their clients. Premier Tech, who specialized in computer programs, had been raided of their blueprints for the new artificial intelligent computer. The irony of the whole thing was that Thatcher was caught on video by the very system he was employed to monitor. Despite this exculpatory evidence, the indictment never went to trial. Thatcher had somehow managed to escape from the authorities, and the video had been lost after police had checked it into evidence. Strangely enough, Griffin Securities settled out of court for a healthy sum of money. Derek read the last paragraph of Tessa's report and closed the file, taking a deep breath. Despite the settlement, Premier Tech took a big financial loss when Valkyrie Industries, one of their competitors, came out with a system similar to what they had been developing. In his opinion, Thatcher had sold the blueprints to Valkyrie Industries, but Thatcher was still nowhere to be found. He had become a ghost. His picture was posted on every police department wall across the planet, and he even had a spot on television's America's Most Wanted. In spite of every attempt From law enforcement officials, Michael Thatcher had continued to elude the long arm of the law. His thoughts were broken up when Sandra walked into Tessa's office. The look on her face was a combination of fatigue and depression. "Find anything?" she asked. The detective wondered if Tessa had uncovered new evidence that would lead to another indictment against Griffin Security. Maybe Premier Tech was not the only company they were stealing from. "I might have something, but I'm not sure yet." "Well, I have the phone records from the phone company. As soon as the police are done, I'll pick up the bank statements from Crestar. Do you need me to pick up anything, like dinner or something?" The thought of food caused his stomach to churn with anticipation, but he fought the urge. He looked at his watch. It was almost 2 in the afternoon. "No, that's okay," he answered. "I'll pick up something later." "Okay. Thanks for your help, Sandra," he responded. "No problem, Mr. Chase," she replied, looking at the body on the floor. "It's obvious that this isn't a simple breaking and entering. Something's going on. Please promise me that you'll get the guy who did this." "Sandra, that's a promise I intend on keeping." She smiled and walked out of the office. He looked at piles of manila folders scattered across the floor. It would take him the rest of the day to go through everything. He sighed quietly, realizing that based on the morning's events, the folder in his hand was his only lead. He made a decision as he quickly walked out of Tessa's office. Sandra was not at her desk, probably gone to the lobby to meet the police. He took out a post-it note from her desk drawer and left a note for her to bring the files and the reports to his beach house. He also asked for her to meet him there that night and help him go through the files. He needed to follow up on a lead, which would start him on the path of repaying a large debt to someone who took a chance on him. And that's it for tonight. That's the end of the selection that I have for Chasing After Trouble. The next episode of Night Reads will be on the 7th of May at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. That would be 7 p.m. Pacific, as long as this doesn't get delayed by illness or some other circumstance that I'm not aware of at the moment. The selection for the next episode will be Otto von Trapezoid and the Empress of Thieves by Jesse Baruffi. According to the submission, it says that it's a sci-fi comedy romance. Looks like it might be interesting. So, until next time, I hope you all have a great night. And if I can find the button to stop this. Okay, here we go.